Here we are. This is the second of 3 videos where I answer your questions about the Orchid Mantis contest. 2 videos ago, I launched the contest where I invited people to ask questions that I would then answer. And in the first video, we gave away the grand prize, the Orchid Mantis. In this video here, we're soon going to use a random number generator, actually a YouTube random comment generator based on the suggestion, a good suggestion by a subscriber in the last video. We're going to select a winner for this deadleaf mantis sticker, the second place prize. And I want to say thank you to all of you, not just for participating in these contests, but also, and most importantly, because it's going to benefit you as well, for showing up here in the last video, where it was the first of 3 videos that I answered your questions with, my first answer video. You guys really showed up for that, and we got over the 30 hours of watch time threshold that I was hoping for. And as I had promised, if you guys watch this video enough, which means a minimum of 30 watch hours, because that was my original agreement with you, and that shouldn't be too hard because 300 people watched the last video. We only needed 30 watch hours. So, you know, if everybody had watched the full video, that would have been 300 hours. Well, I'll just suffice it to say you guys blew the 30-hour requirement that I had requested out of the water, and I'm really appreciative of that. So if we can duplicate that in the video you're watching now, where enough people watch for long enough to meet and exceed that 30-hour threshold, then we will, as I promised, and in conjunction with not this video, but the next video that I make, I will select another winner for an Orchid Mantis out of the pool of people who have already entered the contest. So in the first video of answers, I gave away an Orchid Mantis. This one we're about to select the winner for. And then if you watch enough of this video, we are going to give away another one. This was my, just, you know, my contest within a contest, I guess you could say. So as far as what I'm asking for you in addition to watching this video, the other thing I had requested were ideas in the comments for the last video. I asked you if you would make suggestions as to what species we should use as a giveaway for the next contest. And overwhelmingly, blue death feigning beetles, no surprise, was the most frequently mentioned pet bug. And so just to make things interesting, in the comments for this video right here, I'm going to ask you to comment again, vote again, and I'm going to give you 2 choices. And whichever one of these choices is most frequently commented, that will be the one that we use as a giveaway on Friday, which is tomorrow. And so if you want blue death feigning beetles to be the prize, and I would give away 3 of them to the lucky winner, or the other choice is another Orchid Mantis. So surprise, you're going to get another chance to win an Orchid Mantis, because I know that's what brought all of you guys here in the first place. And I do have some more Orchid Mantises, and I know that you guys really love them, and understandably so. They are gorgeous and beautiful, and I rarely have them, whereas the blue death feigning beetles I have more frequently than not. And so if you want to choose one of these 2 things, if you want to participate in the vote, and again, as always, your comments help my YouTube videos to reach other people, I would be very grateful if you would, if you can see this right here, down in the comments, either write hashtag Orchid Mantis or hashtag blue death feigning beetle. So I only learned what hashtags were like 3 years ago. I didn't even know. It's this number symbol right here, which is Shift 3 above the 3 on the keyboard. It's a funny thing to have to explain, but 4 years ago, I would have needed to have had it explained to me too. So it's hashtag no space Orchid Mantis or hashtag no space Blue Death Feigning Beetle. So please vote down below in the comments, and tomorrow I will upload the 3rd video where I answered questions from the last contest, and in conjunction with that, I will launch a new contest. I haven't even begun to think about what the rules for that contest or the requirements for that contest will be. An idea is forming in my mind as I speak, but we'll have some fun with that, and I will try to make it less about me answering questions and more about seeing the pet bugs that you guys love to see. So right now we are going to use this software over here. I'm going to copy the URL, the website address for this Pet Orchid Mantis contest, and I'm going to pop it over here into this YouTube video URL. It's called the YouTube Random Comment Picker. And for future reference, one of the reasons why I mentioned hashtags here is because you can do searches by hashtags too, and that'll make it easier for me maybe to count, you know, how many of each were in the comments down there below. And so I pasted it in there. I'm going to hit Get YouTube Comments. Now, this is also going to filter out the duplicate users, because sometimes if a single person leaves multiple comments, you know, or unfairly entered by asking 2 questions, it will ensure that everybody just has one chance to win here. So we're filtering out those duplicate. Oh, it says that. Did I enter the right URL? So I think let's see here, let's try this one more time. I don't think I pasted it in there. There we go. All right. So it says that there were 190 unique commenters, and not everybody that asked, not every one of those people was a person who asked a question. So if through this we find that this winner, which is as soon as I hit start here, I think it's going to show who that winner is and show what their comment was. If it wasn't a question, we're going to do it again, because it was a requirement of the contest to ask a question. So we'll see if it was a question. And the winner for the sticker is, apparently it's going through all 190. Oh my gosh, it's Viking Tater Tot. He was a winner in one of the previous contests I did. That's funny. And his question was, what would be a good insect species to start with to get a good handle on breeding bugs? Also, I'm so stoked I won the first contest. He didn't win the Orchid Mantis the other day. He's referring to a contest I did before that, which was my first official YouTube contest, I think, 2 weeks ago now. So anyway, there you have it. There's the winner. I'm going to remind you one more time that these are the 2 things that I want you to comment in down below. You're welcome to add additional comments, but if you want to be if you want to influence what the prize is going to be for the next contest, please either type in down below hashtag Orchid Mantis or hashtag Blue Death Feigning Beetle. The word feigning is spelled F-E-I-G-N-I-N-G. Kind of a funny word. It means faking, because blue death feigning beetles feign death. They pretend to be dead when they are disturbed, which confuses predators that might be looking for a quick and easy meal, since they aren't particularly quick beetles. They, however, are particularly active in their tanks, which is one of the reasons why they are the all-time best pet bugs. So thank you very much again for watching this and for being a part of this contest. And I'm very excited to be launching another one on Friday, because this is so much fun for me. Thank you. So I wanted to show you the stickers again for this contest. Of course, only one of those is really a sticker. Jesse did a really good job on this dead leaf mantis sticker. And you can see the actual insect, the Deriplatus lobata dead leaf mantis, that he drew it after. You can see the amazing veination there on the wings, mimicking dead leaves right down to the veins there. What looks like a dried leaf. Beautiful species. I'm going to pop this up here on my hat. I know that sitting and watching me do these YouTube videos might be a little boring after a while. Not for me, of course, but listening to other people's questions, maybe. I don't know. If you make it through the whole thing, I'd be really curious to know if anybody watched it all. I'm not sure if I'm going to upload this all in one video or separate it out into a couple videos. It's gone on quite long already, I know, but I think that's a good thing. Just like I think a 1-year lifespan for a pet is a good thing. It's all a matter of perspective. So where were we? Somebody says, is my mouse working here? What's going on? I think I need to refresh the screen here. Well, let's just see how this goes. Oh, I can feel the little pitter-patter of feet on the side of my face now and on my ear. Well, I'm sure it's entertaining you. This person, second person named Paige, I thought it was the same person asking 2 questions, but she asks, are there any interesting jobs you might be able to get from studying entomology? I recently heard that sometimes entomologists are hired in law enforcement to study how long a corpse has been dead based on the bugs on the body. Forensic entomology, I guess it's called. It was sounding pretty nasty, honestly, but I never would have thought of that. And so, yeah, I think there's a place called the Body Farm. And they make observations after burying them, how long it takes for the pests to come up. They probably leave some on the surface too. There are different things that will come and lay their eggs on them, and depending, you can judge how long a body has been on the ground or left out somewhere by, through various means, but as it pertains to insects, flies, for example, different species of flies will deposit their eggs on the dead organism, we shall say. And the larvae will hatch from the eggs and feed on the corpse. And depending on the size of the larvae when the body is discovered, whether the larvae have finished feeding, whether they've crawled off, whether they've dug themselves into the ground and pupated, those kinds of clues can be used to determine how long a body has been sitting in a particular place. And so she asks, are there other jobs in entomology that might be interesting or odd? I would say that my job is pretty odd. I would argue reasonably. I think that I have the best job in entomology, and of course it's because I made this job. I think photography, traveling around the world like a National Geographic photographer would be a fascinating career. I'm certain that it's very competitive. There's some opportunities through YouTube to have careers making videos about whatever topic that you like, which is what I'm working on right here in this moment. a lot of people that get entomology degrees end up either in pest control or doing some kind of research, often for agriculture, also as it pertains to pests and the way pests affect crops. And so it's not a field, the field of entomology is not something that I've ever thought about going into. You know, given the options that are out there, teaching would obviously be another option you would have. So, I mean, I hate to not have a great answer to this question, well, there is one career that a lot of my customers are in, and I know one guy in particular that has been doing it longer than I've been doing what I'm doing. A friend up in Seattle named Don Elin, who runs a business called Insect Safari. And he has made a career, wonderful career, out of presenting his bugs at libraries and schools, birthday parties, pretty much anywhere where there will be people who would be interested in seeing these unique animals and learning about them. And I mean, it's not something that you need to go to school for, but among the options that I've discussed within the field of entomology, I would have to say that that's one of my favorite things that a person could do within the field itself. So if anybody wants to comment about interesting fields that they are in, or ones that I left out, because there's probably 100 of them, please help out Paige DeShields here in the comments section with some suggestions. Thank you for your question, Paige. I don't know if I answered this one already. How difficult is to care for orchid mantises? They're the same as other mantises up until the point that you breed them, which I also discussed. So just because they look really interesting, really exotic, they are no more or less difficult than your backyard species would be. Outdoor Girl, Sadie, came into the question and answer contest here again. I would love it if you won, Sadie. I would love to see an orchid mantis featured on your Outdoor Girl account on Instagram and YouTube. That would be wonderful. Do you believe that a woolly bear caterpillar can predict the severity of the weather, winter weather, by the length of the orange band on its body? I absolutely do not believe that, but just because I don't believe it doesn't mean that it's not perfectly true. I suspect that you are probably more of an expert on this topic than I am, even though I have grown up around woolly bears. I do remember seeing on your account that you went to the Woolly Bear Festival out east here in the United States somewhere this past, probably late summer, because that's when they tend to be out, or in the fall. And so I don't believe that the length of them any more than the hedgehog, Punxsutawney, is that his name? Phil popping his head up is an indicator to the length of winter either. So a fun question though, thank you very much. Mythology and wives' tales and those things are all very interesting, and there are a lot of misconceptions about bugs, right down to one of the simplest and most common ones, that there are dangerous spiders around us and that every spider we see in our homes is dangerous. Of course, the black widow and brown recluses are the ones that are in the United States where I live, and that their bites can be medically significant, just in terms of their venom. But even within that, it's often blown out of proportion, and worst case scenario, we're all very close to hospitals at this point. I found myself down in Arizona last summer, got appendicitis out of nowhere and experienced the longest night of my life before calling a hospital in the morning, calling around to hospitals, and finally finding one that would perform a surgery to get this horrible demon organ of an appendix out of my body. And a long, bumpy road, dirt roads, gravel roads in the middle of nowhere to get to the smallish town of Sierra Vista, the closest place that would perform the surgery for me. And so my trip was extended by a few days. What is your favorite place or country to visit for finding neat insects? I was astonished by the diversity in Costa Rica. And so I'll get questions like this pretty frequently. And again, mindset. For me, the neatest thing that I can do is to walk outside here behind my house and to look season to season. This is my first year here in this house. I was living in another town for the prior 7 years. And so I'm seeing things in my backyard now. I moved in here in March and it is December now. And I've seen things in this yard that I never saw in the old yard, but I will point out also that in the old yard, I would constantly see new things that I've never seen before because I look a lot and I look carefully. And I set up my black lights, and so things that you wouldn't ordinarily see during the day or night unless you were running these special attracting lights, they show up. And so there's a constant succession of species to where, you know, as we talked about recently in the last question, the woolly bear caterpillars, I might see the caterpillars themselves at one point in the year, and then I might see the adult moths in April and May, but only in April and May. You don't see the adults the rest of the year. And so one species, one season is constantly giving way to the next group of things that comes along. And I see new things all the time. And so for me, the hassles that come with travel to other countries and all of the unknown variables, for me, when I imagine going to these other places, it's almost not as exciting to me as the idea of simply walking into my backyard at any given moment when I feel like it to see what's moving around. And I will say further that I thank you all on Instagram and here on YouTube for motivating me through your comments and you're hitting the like button on either platform. When you guys interact with me on these platforms, it's motivating to me to where I want to go back out there and find the next bug, because then I get that experience after I upload it, edit the video, write out my caption. I get the experience of sharing it with you. And for me, that's as exciting, the people, as finding the insects. And so it's a cycle, it's a circle, and I really enjoy that. I have to hit refresh here because I know there's a bunch more questions. Oh, someone said, do you have any bug-related tattoos? I have a huge orchid mantis on the side of my neck, and the other side is a huge cicada. That's really awesome. Chris Pixie Smith. I have this stag beetle right here. This is Mucanus elephas, giant stag beetle, the largest stag beetle in the United States. And I also have a mantis tattoo on the back of my neck. Can you see it? How many orchid mantises do you think you can place on an orchid before someone notices? That's a fun question. I went and got a millipede, just for variety's sake. Have fun watching it cruise around on top of my hat again. What's one insect you wanted to keep for a while but haven't kept yet? There's probably a lot of things in that category. I would be fascinated to keep one of those wasps that paralyzes cockroaches. There is a beautiful emerald jewel-colored wasp that some people in Europe are captive breeding, and I believe it paralyzes the roach, stings it, and then probably lays an egg in it or something. But anyway, this wasp can be reproduced in captivity. I haven't looked into it really, just because it's not something that I will probably ever have access to, but I've seen it pop up in social media a little bit, and I think that would be a fascinating and unusual thing to keep. Besides them, velvet ants are really the only hymenopteran, ants, bees, and wasps, besides honeybees, that are kept as, in colonies or as pets. So that would be cool. This person asked, how quickly does a mantis snap out to catch its prey? It's quicker than the blink of an eye, I believe. And I actually looked this up. I'd seen the number before, but I looked it up and answered their question right there, but I'll share it with you. It's 50 to 70 milliseconds. So there are 1,000 milliseconds in a second, and it's 50 to 70 milliseconds. So that's like 1/20th of a second. What's the most rewarding part of owning an orchid mantis? I read that one already. Let's see here. In respect to the orchid mantis, are there subspecies that would play a part in how predominant certain colors would be? I once read that they were found in several countries. That is true. Would a mantis from one country be more pink or white than from another country to try to blend in with the indigenous flowers? I think that's a reasonable assumption. I don't believe there are any subspecies of Hymenopus coronatus, coronatus, if you will. But I mean, it's not unreasonable to suggest that there will be differences, not just in the genes of different populations of them in different places, but maybe also slightly in the appearances of them. I don't have any experience with that species in particular. Love your videos. So my question is, what is your opinion on people buying insects from you with the intention of breeding them and selling them online? Free market, can do whatever you want. I'm not discriminating as to who my customers are. A sale is a sale, I suppose. I mentioned earlier that I won't offload my entire inventory of something to a pet store. I enjoy having the experience of interacting with my own customers as frequently as possible, of course. Is there any species of insect or arachnid you never want to keep? Never want to keep. I can't think of a single thing offhand. This person asks, how many mantids do you currently keep? And the answer is, I don't keep any. That's not true. I have some that I'm retaining to breed. I have a good group of giant Asian mantises, Hiradula membranacea right now, and a few other adult mantises that I hope to breed. I also have a good little group of orchid mantises that I'm working with. But beyond those, they're all for sale, and so I hope not to keep them any longer than I have to. That's shop.bugsincyberspace.com. Go get your first mantis pet now. Now, my second night of answering questions. It's gotten dark again outside. So first person says, In terms of a question, was there ever a bug that you tried to care for that you expected to be easy, but it turned out to be a devil to care for? Jerusalem crickets might be a good answer to this question. Unlike other kinds of crickets, it seems they're pretty difficult to reproduce in captivity. I've only known one person to do that, and coincidentally, that's Jesse Green, who is sponsoring this contest in part with the dead leaf mantis sticker. He lived down in California when he was younger and happened to live in a place where lots of them occurred, and so he had a lot of access to them and was able to reproduce them in captivity. I have seen eggs of them, and I've known other people, even within the last week, someone on Instagram sent me a picture. They had a Jerusalem cricket in a container with no substrate, actually. There were a few pieces of bark or something in there, but the Jerusalem cricket was depositing eggs over in the corner, and there were a few of them over there, which I thought was rather amazing. Getting eggs and then having them hatch, though, are two different things, and so time will tell to see if he's able to hatch them. So that's an example of something that is difficult in terms of reproducing it in captivity. Next question, scroll down here a bit. I'm picking, there's questions that didn't get answered in different places here, and I'm trying to work through those. How long have you been owning mantises? I actually did answer that one earlier. Here's a good section of them. What kinds of cool gifts would be great for a person who's really into bugs? My girlfriend is really into everything spiders and bugs, and I wanted to know what kinds of things might be good ideas. It's hard to answer a question like that because I don't know what she has kept before. If she has not kept anything, then I would recommend the really tried and true examples within particular categories. Most any mantis would be fine. Within millipedes, you've got the ivory millipedes and the orthoporus. I have the gold ones and maybe a couple of the ones I call sonorans that are a darker purplish brown color in stock right now. You know, most any scorpion would be good. Same with spiders and tarantulas. They are all generally the same in terms of the ease or difficulty in care. So really, any cockroach too would be very easy. Really the kind of thing that it would be helpful if we had a few back and forth conversations on. Someone asks my favorite insect that I've owned. Really, I'll work this one in reverse. My favorite insect that I've owned is the last one that I got that I've never had before, because that was the most recent novel experience for me. And so that's what it always is for me, is seeing something new. What species of beetle could you mix to have a diversified communal tank of bugs? Sometimes I have to work through the words because they weren't put into the sentence in the right way. Sorry. Desert beetles is always my go-to answer for a question like this. It's one of my top recommendations. The blue death veining beetles, maybe mixed with the smooth death veining beetles, some darkling beetles. I usually have a couple of each different kind available on the website, excuse me. And they're very active in the tank, and they do really well together since their care requirements are the same. And so there you go. What is the hardest type of mantis to keep in your experience? I'm guessing exotics that need heating or super tiny species. You nailed it on both counts there, and as I mentioned in a prior question, are bugs and insects the same thing? Also, is it possible to get an apprenticeship with you? I run my business out of my home, and at one time I looked into having some interns, but you know, and I always look to the colleges for that. But I'm not able to have interns here because of state laws, it being a home business. I also, the only reason I would even consider doing that is because it's something that they could potentially get credit for at school, and I don't feel comfortable having help from people if I'm not paying them, and so the people that work for me are employees. And as far as bugs and insects being the same thing, there's a funny chart out there that talks about the different kinds of people and how they define the word bugs. For me personally, a bug is synonymous with the word arthropod. And so if you look up the definition of arthropod and maybe take an entire course on taxonomy, that will answer that question. But generally, arachnids, insects, millipedes, centipedes, and a whole bunch of other things that are in different classes of arthropods. Each one of those things I named is a class. Anyway, taxonomy, it's another topic. How did the invertebrate hobby get all of the exotic insects from the wild back to their homes? I think I understand that question. I sometimes go out into my yard and I collect something, sometimes to make a video of for you guys, particularly on Instagram for my under 60-second video clips that I upload there daily. If you guys aren't following me on Instagram, I have over 1,000 videos there, and if you love bug content, I highly recommend it. I'm quite proud of the work that I've done there and the body of work that I have amassed, and we have a lot of fun there too. And the comments are really fun too, conversations that I have with people. So check that out if you get an opportunity to. Next question. Is it possible to overfeed a mantis? This is a very good question, and a question, one of the most common questions. Mantises are nearly bottomless. It depends on the size of the feeder, of course. It depends on the size of the mantis, of course, but they will eat a lot and their abdomens will become very plump. There seems to be some sort of mythology in the hobby, and sometimes some of the larger wildlife accounts on YouTube and in social media support myths because they don't actually have experience working with the animals firsthand. And so you, in my experience, cannot overfeed a mantis, except only by definition if you are also not keeping it warm enough. If a mantis is not kept at room temperature, or ideally a little bit warmer, and there's some species that need even warmer temperatures than that, I think 80 degrees is a good target. But if you have a mantis whose abdomen is so full, you may witness your mantis eating a cricket and then come in to the room the next day, look in the tank, and it's only eaten half of it, but it has not let it go. It's holding on to it for dear life for some reason. And you'll see that its abdomen is completely full. In order to grow in an optimal, healthy way, you need to be balancing the amount of food you offer with the temperature you are keeping it at. And so if a mantis has a very large meal and it's kept very cold after that, it won't metabolize the food that it's eaten. It won't digest it. And so in that sense, I would say that's a case of overfeeding. But the mythology I'm referring to is that some people think that a mantis will eat itself to death. And a mantis will not do that. The keeper may contribute through improper care practices to the mantis becoming unhealthy through not digesting its food. But the mantis itself will not explode, as the myth sometimes goes, from eating too much. A good question. Thank you. Which pet bug would be the best gift for this holiday? It has to be easy to care for and readily obtainable. Blue Death fainting beetles. Do you have any college level education in entomology? If not, how did you get into it? Have you been interested in insects and bugs since you were young? I'm considering going to college for entomology myself, and it'd be interesting to know how exactly you became successful in this. Like many businesses, I was kind of here first, and I am kind of insane with how much time and passion I have for this. And so those are really critical factors in understanding my success, if you will call it that. I do work 16 hours a day, seven days a week. I mean, I just do. I take breaks, but when I'm not actually working, doing all of these little things, I am still involved in my business in some other capacity, whether I'm picking up groceries while I'm picking up supplies for my business or whatever. Just trust me, this is all I do because it's all I want to do, and I can. No formal education in entomology, as I've stated previously. I never found taking classes in entomology interesting. It's not something that I ever wanted to do. I do like information trickling down to me through various avenues. I like the search, the quest for knowledge. I like, when a question or a topic moves me. Someone in this contest asked earlier, and I'd seen the information before, but I had to look it up again. They asked, how quick is the strike of a mantis? And so I looked it up because someone asked me to. I didn't need to know for the rest of my life probably that a mantis strike happened in 50 to 70 milliseconds, but I looked it up because somebody else wanted to know, and it's something that I may remember for the rest of my life, and it's an interesting thing to me, and it's within a field that I'm interested in, but what I do, I said this in this contest in answers to a question already, I do what I like to do. And I made this business so that I could do what I love about entomology every day. And so the things that I needed to learn were more business related and interpersonal skills, and mainly it's just a lot of work. It's just a lot of dedication, and it helps to love what you're doing. How do you think fellow bug lovers should push for bugs being a normal occurrence in the pet trade? Would it take franchise stores selling them to increase the popularity and give people exposure? Do you ever think that at some point, instead of a little kid walking into a store and leaving with a goldfish or betta fish, they'll be leaving with a praying mantis instead? I hope this becomes normalized soon. Anna Herrera, this is a really good question. Interestingly, I probably, if it wasn't for the internet, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. If it wasn't before that I saw 4 species of stick insects at pet stores here in the Portland, Oregon area, and Petco and like Scamps, a pet store, I don't even know if they exist anymore. They used to sell different kinds of praying mantises, African praying mantises, Sphodromantis, and the spiny flower mantises, Pseudocreobotra. I just wanted to say it correctly this time because in a recent video I kind of flubbed that. But also the African giant black millipedes, the AGBs, lots of emperor scorpions, and the Mexican red-knee tarantulas. Bugs used to be a lot more popular in pet stores than they are today. Because of that, I think you're right. It did promote an awareness for just the average person walking through the pet store that bugs could be pets. As for your first question, how do you think fellow bug lovers should push for bugs being a normal occurrence in the pet trade? I don't have any irons in the fire, so to speak, for that topic. It is not my mission in life, and that's probably surprising for people. It's not my mission in life to push bugs on people. Got an email. It's not my mission in life to try to bend people's minds to appreciate bugs more. This has always been about me just doing what I love and being grateful that the people who notice me, you know, they see things the way I do. I'm just here to be discovered. I'm not trying to shine a light on anything for anybody. There's a lot of people out there that are hell-bent on changing other people's minds. You know, I just sort of lead by example, if you want me to put it that way. But I am not motivated by changing other people's minds. I have been through 2 marriages. I know how difficult it is, even when you are absolutely committed to changing somebody's mind about a topic, be it insects or politics or, you know, which direction the toilet paper roll should be on. You know, I've fought these battles in the past, and now approaching my mid-40s, I am pretty content just to sail very quietly through the rest of my life, focusing on what I love and the people who also love what I love. So thank you for your question. And that catches us up for now. Here we have another mantis I wanted to show off since we're doing a mantis contest. This is Neodonuria bulawana, and they are in the same family of mantises as Popaspurca, the African twig mantis. These ones are a little larger and paler. Over here, get a nice shot of the head of this mantis. So this one will be our mascot here during this portion, this video here. And we will continue on with some questions. Get myself comfortable here for a few moments. Good morning again. It's the second day, maybe the third day of the contest. Night, a full day, and now the third day. And we start off with a question here from David Hernandez. Mind if I can get any kind of mantis? I've been following you for a while and really want one now. I have a website, an online store called shop.bugsincyberspace.com. It's been up for nearly 22 years, and you are welcome to check my inventory out there, David. Please do that and shoot me an email if you have any questions. Thank you very much for your interest. I have a rotating selection of mantises. I generally get new ones every probably 6 weeks or so on average. I purchase them from a variety of people. I'm always looking to purchase more of them. Captive bred ones here, ones that were captive bred from stock they sourced in the United States, of course. And I'm often making purchases from people I originally sold the mantises to. And I'm scrolling down here. That one was just kind of floating randomly up there. I must have missed it. I can feel this mantis cruising to the back of my head again. Someone, he says, what would be a good insect species to start with to get a good handle on breeding bugs? Also, I'm so stoked I won the first contest. Well, you know, it's a joke, but obviously fruit flies would be a fantastic example of something that you could begin with for breeding bugs. Not only are they feeders for lots of other things, but their life cycle pretty much turns over in about 7 days, which makes them a model organism for genetics and lots of other things. Ghost mantises might be a good one if you want a predatory pet. It would be hard to beat roaches for something that reproduces very easily in captivity and is otherwise easy to care for. Isopods are fun to watch in a tank. They're very active down below. I think the mantis must be working its way towards the window, the light behind us, and that's why it keeps going to the back of my head. Scroll down a little bit more here. How do I feel about anthropomorphism and its effects on insect keeping, particularly keeping mantids? I talked about this quite a bit in a prior video, one of the last 3 videos before I kicked off this Orchid Mantis contest, that topic, anthropomorphism. I mean, everybody, I think, naturally applies, the word means to attribute human qualities to an animal. And as far as it pertains to insects, if you are enjoying your relationship with your pet, regardless of what kind of pet it is, I think that's your choice to make. You know, if you want to think your cat is smiling at you, or your dog is lonely, or any of these same attributes as they pertain to your pet, you know, have your best experience. I'm always advocating the experience of the keeper, and so do that. Ratty says, hi Peter, millipedes are my favorite invertebrates, so what's your favorite millipede? Categorically, I refuse to pick favorites for anything. A millipede that I really like, as far as ones that are commonly kept as pets, I really like the feather millipedes. Although they are very small, maybe topping out at 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters, they are very unique looking. There's nothing else like them in the hobby. They look so fragile. I came up with the name feather millipede years ago. It's always good for things to have common names, because it takes us back to the last question. It helps us when there are cute names for things to be interested in them, in the same way that I mentioned in a prior question that giving a cute and cuddly name to a tarantula will help to soften the blow that some people feel when you are introducing a pet that you think is cute to them. You know, if it's named Killer or something like that, you know, it's going to give people preconceived notions before they consider looking at it, let alone handling a pet that you might be handling. So that would be a millipede that I really like. As far as ones that are really great as pets, if you want to reproduce them, I mentioned before the ivory millipede. I have no idea where this mantis went off to. Oh, it's cruising here on the back of the couch. Come here. Maybe we'll pop you up here on the laptop, and then I can keep an eye on you, and at the same time everyone can see you. Well, there's only so much attention that you guys want to give me in the first place, so let's not mess around too much. Do you have a hard time keeping your habitats moist enough in the winter? Very good question, Aaron. And the reason why dryness is often more of a concern in winter months is because the heaters in our homes are running all day long and all night long, and through that it really dries the air out. You can read statistics online that mention that the humidity in homes can drop down to levels that are consistent with deserts in the winter months. And so even though an insect habitat or a pet bug habitat, or whether you're keeping dart frogs or anything, a tank is a microclimate. And it is our goal as keepers to make sure that that microclimate is providing what the animal needs. And so you may have to introduce water into the tank more in the winter months. I have never personally, believe it or not, used a humidity gauge, not once ever. Everything I've ever done has been through observation. And another trick is to limit the amount of ventilation, so the number of air holes you have in the tank, or if you're using a screened lid, maybe drop a sheet of plexiglass on top of it, or a few books, or whatever you want to put up there that is going to diminish the flow of air and the loss of humidity. And so let's see. So I don't have any trouble maintaining the humidity. There are some very simple things you can do to mitigate that loss. What is lifespan of the orchid mantis? About a year. Females live longer than males. Also, I looked at your website and I see that they are out of stock. Do you have any for purchase? My Horde King Assassins I received from you are doing well. I don't currently have any for purchase. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with the small lot of them that I purchased for resale recently. I think I'm gonna pump a bunch out in contests here on YouTube, because this is the best video I've ever done in terms of getting people to come over and check out my channel. And truth be told, I enjoy this all very much, answering your questions. The human interaction for me has always been one of the best parts of the hobby for me. And so I am not prepared to answer that question at this time, but please stay tuned, because there will be other opportunities to win orchid mantises and blue death feigning beetles. I would love, if time permits, to do a contest like this every week. Next question, what is your favorite type of mantis? And I don't pick favorites. This is a question that, as we do these contests, I'm not going to do the same kind of contest every time, because this would get tiresome for you in terms of viewership, because a lot of the questions within this contest already have been repeated. And so I'm not going to keep answering the favorite questions, but people will keep asking them. And I will ignore them at some point, but out of, just to provide a framework for you why I am going to ignore this question in the future, I am mentioning it now. Is there any factor in particular that makes orchid mantises pinker in hue than others, or just some happen to be pinker than others? I believe, yes. I'm going to direct you to watch the video that you are asking a question in, because I already covered this topic in the later half of the video, where I showed a whole bunch of different orchid mantises. And I touched on this also as I answered questions already. What is the life expectancy of different types of praying mantises? What types are native to the United States? I used to know the number of native species we had here in the United States. I don't recall that number off the top of my head. I haven't thought about this for a dozen years. I would guess that there are something in the 20 to 25 species, but that may have changed even, because new ones are being determined all the time. Not all the time, but they are popping up. Scientists are splitting things and lumping things all the time taxonomically. Males, you probably expect 6 to 8 months out of them. Females, I would say a year on average, depending on care, depending on the temperature that they're kept at. Less so depending on the species. If you bring a wild mantis in from the outdoors in the summer and it has its wings already, it's a seasonal species, and you probably will see 0 to 6 months on average for its remaining lifespan. They will tend here in the United States, for example, to die off in the winter, late fall to winter, for a couple of reasons. Number one, they hatched in the spring when food came out for them. That's just the way evolution has designed them. It times their emergence as babies, as nymphs, to coincide with the presence of things for them to eat, other insects. So the sun warms the egg case hatches, the mantises grow and feed over the summer months, over the bug season. And then in the fall, at the same time that their food is starting to disappear, the females have matured and they are depositing egg cases, which then overwinter and hatch again, repeating the life cycle in the spring. So I have heard of people keeping mantises alive, ghost mantises, for example, for almost 2 years, maybe even 2 years. They can be very long-lived, and I'll do a video on that topic at some point. How do you continue the bloodlines of your mantises? Like, were they all original from the same pairings and in a sense interbreed, or do you keep bringing new genes in? I tend not to breed mantises through multiple generations just because it's a lot of work. Raising mantises is actually one of the more difficult hobbies, one of the more difficult pet bugs to reproduce. And that's because they need daily or almost daily attention. You can, if their container has a moist substrate in it and you've fed it up nice, you can actually leave them for a week or even 2. I don't recommend doing that. It's not nice at the very least. It's not ideal for the animal, but it's not like a dog or a cat where it needs, a food bowl, placed out for it every day and a place to go to the bathroom that is cleaned out. You can leave town and not worry too much. You would worry maybe about the molting process if your mantis were going to molt and you weren't there to make sure that you're misting it every day if your container is not set up correctly. As far as bloodlines, it's hard to say. There's a lot of people that talk about that in the hobby. In mammals, it's more of a concern, obviously, in breeding. With insects, it's less so of a concern. Some people would even argue that for the time that people are keeping them, if you kept them from 10 generations, you might actually have a stronger population or a prettier population of certain things. I don't really think that that it's a function so much of inbreeding being a problem in insects. I think that the reason why people fail with things the 4th generation in is because it's not as exciting for them as the first couple generations. They aren't providing the same level of care or attention that they were originally, or maybe they didn't retain enough males and females to make up for the the fact that they weren't paying as much attention as they were originally. So I personally believe that it has less to do with bloodlines issues and more to do with care and attention issues, but it's debatable, and I welcome your comments and thoughts on that. Have you ever reared moths? I have. Back in my stick insect days, I used to acquire other things as well, like giant silk moths, Saturniids. I never got into rearing them. I did do it just like with Antheria polyphemus a few times, but never on any scale like many of the other things that I've done. I don't feel competent in my experience level with moths as a group. And part of the reason for that is that they are plant eaters, and I don't distribute plant eaters. I don't sell them. And another reason is that it's sort of frowned upon in the moth hobby. This was true 20 years ago. I don't know how much of an issue it is among keepers today, but there are population differences between the moths here in Portland, Oregon, for the polyphemus moth, for example, and the polyphemus moths in other parts of the country. And it is very tempting for people who purchase a moth as a pet, a caterpillar or an egg or however they acquire it, to grow it up with their children in many cases, or in a classroom setting. And then once the adult moth has emerged from the cocoon, they feel in their hearts that the right thing to do is to release it out into nature, because it's a beautiful experience to watch something grow through its life cycle and to let it free. But in my opinion, and in the opinion of many people who care about ecology, it's actually the worst thing you can do is to release that moth where its genes are going to mix into the local population with other moths. And of course, another concern is that if you release it during the wrong time of year, there's not really going to be a mate out there for it anyway, although that's slightly less of a concern for various reasons. But no, not a lot with moths. Can you talk about the warrior beetles, please? Passymachus is the genus, and I don't remember how many there are in the United States. I think maybe 11 or 14 species. Can't remember, and it probably changes. And my favorite one are the Passymachus viridans in Arizona. They have this, so the beetle itself, they tend to be about this large. There's some in Florida that are smaller, but they'll be as big as this in the case of one called Passymachus depressus, I think. But the Passymachus viridans, it's sort of a medium-sized species within the genus, and they have this metallic green, and it's not like, it's like a tinsel green. It's like a metallic foil green. It's a vivid green. And it's just the most beautiful beetle. And upon magnification, if you look up near the mandibles, you can see red seedy, the little hairs around that. And so a long time ago, when I had better sourcing for them, I named them Christmas warrior beetles. And if they were more regularly available in the hobby, that common name probably would have stuck. But wonderful predatory ground beetles, good sized, long lived, aggressive, really, really a neat genus of beetles to keep. And thank you for the question. How often do mantises eat? There's a care sheet on my website. I'm always going to direct people to that because I'm never going to answer this question to my own satisfaction, because out of respect for time. So the goal with keeping a mantis is to keep its abdomen plump. If its abdomen is thin, like my pinky, or getting close to being the thickness of a piece of paper, feed it up. You want it to be thick. You want it to be plump. You want it to look like a sausage or a cigar rather than narrow. So let that be your goal. I can't answer the question, how often does a mantis need to feed? Because if you're feeding a mantis this size with fruit flies, then it needs to eat tons of them all the time, because that's not very much. But if you feed it, a single blue bottle fly or a cricket perhaps, then it could easily go a week without needing to eat again, although again, it depends on what the temperature you're keeping at it is, which dictates how quickly it's metabolizing its food, digesting it. And so always look for plumpness in the abdomen. It can be a little tricky. This is a very skinny species right here. And so, it can be harder in a species like this than if it's a female who may also be filling up with eggs. So another rule of thumb is to keep feeding them until they decide they're done eating, which becomes obvious because they no longer capture or pursue the prey. Always pull uneaten feeders out of your pet mantis's tank, and the care sheet will tell you why. Supreme Gecko, Wally, has put a question in here. He is one of my favorite accounts on YouTube. I look forward to having a very long relationship with him. He's been very supportive of my channel here as I've gotten it going again in the last year. He says, what animal was your greatest challenge either to keep or breed, such as a couple failures before successes? Great video and good luck with the contest. Thank you, Wally. Because I've had lots of questions similar to that, I'll just sort of refer back to my answer about the devil's flower, a kind of mantis, which I may, depending on how many more questions there are, feature in my next sit down as I answer more questions. Thank you, and I enjoyed your last video with the mass of, I think it was dairy cow isopods, when you turned over those pieces of wood on your Supreme Gecko YouTube channel. I was just really impressed by the number of isopods you had managed to produce under there. And I enjoyed watching your technique of going out and collecting wild mushrooms, drying them out and cutting them up, among other things in that last video. Thank you. Amy S., I have always wanted a pink orchid mantis, but have heard they are fairly difficult to raise. While I have extensive experience with Chinese mantids, what would you say the biggest difference between raising the two species is? In my opinion, and you will be extremely surprised to hear this, as will everybody else, Chinese mantises are more difficult than orchid mantises to raise from small nymphs to adults. And the reason for that is because Chinese mantises often require, or do require, very large containers because it's a long, thin species. And because of the size of their bodies and how leggy they are, in my experience, more likely to have trouble molting. And part of that is also due to the fact that mantis tanks tend to be a little bit on the smaller size, and they need a lot of room to spread out and attach their feet up to multiple points, which often in a small tank with few climbing structures, that they haven't been provided to the point where the mantis can, say, I'm going to put this leg here, this leg here, this leg here, and this leg here, because they attach through 4 legs. And so for that reason, the Chinese mantises are more difficult than the orchid mantises, which are smaller, and a large Chinese mantis, I'll try to make this shape with 4 of my fingers. It needs this much space, and its legs are longer, so the molting process actually, these legs have to slip out of the old exoskeleton longer, further, if you will. And the orchid mantises, they're shorter despite having lobes on their legs and looking a little bit odd. And so, there you go. That's the answer to that question. Don't be intimidated by the exotic mantis species that you are able to source in the hobby if you're concerned about caring for them, because they're actually going to be easier in many cases than the ones that we grew up raising, like the Chinese mantis, which is established throughout much of the United States. Is it common or easy to keep aphids as feeders for insects like ladybugs or mantises? It's very uncommon, and aphids are plant feeders. They are plant pests. And so, number one, you will never see them available for that reason for sale where people are shipping it to other states because they are plant pests. Also, even if you find them outside on your rose bushes, for example, an aphid doesn't really provide much of a gut load. It would be sort of like feeding honey to your mantises. It's more of a drink than a food. I believe I've seen them. I haven't seen them for sale anywhere. I don't know if ladybugs and beetles and whatnot munch on them. So if you have nothing else to feed to your mantises, it happens sometimes where someone's fruit fly culture. I just did a fruit fly culture video, and I'll put the card up here, a link to that. There are a lot of things you can do wrong with a fruit fly culture. It requires care, just like a mantis does. And if you don't care for it properly, you may see that it stops producing flies and you find yourself in a position where you don't have something to feed to your mantis. And I definitely advocate, a lot of people have this paranoia, it's a myth in my opinion, that you have to be concerned about the average thing that you collect from your yard and feed to your pet in terms of pet bugs. But I would recommend that if you run out of feeders, that you do go out and check your porch light in the evening hours for little things that are flying around to feed to your mantis. Or look on your plants, turn the leaves over, see if there are some aphids underneath there, because something is better than nothing when it comes to your hungry pet. Let's see. How do you make an octopus laugh? I suppose you're going to have to tickle it, but this is probably a joke that I do not know the punchline to.
Hey, if you like me, give me one of those thumbs up, and please subscribe and hit the little bell so you know when I post next. Please share me with your friends on social media. Thank you for watching.